Hi friends, welcome to our first video for our new unit, Motivation, Emotion, and Personality. We're going to start off with Introduction to Motivation, so let's go ahead and get started. So we've got some learning targets. There's a lot of different theories, vocab words, and stuff like that that you're going to need to make sure that you know. So we're just going to dive right in and try to hit each one of these. Okay, so motivation, what is it? We hear that term thrown around all the time, but motivation includes the influences that account for the initiation, the direction, the intensity, and the persistence of our behavior. So it's going to incorporate all of those things. So basically, why we do what we do. Okay, so I don't know if anyone has ever heard of Aaron Rattleson, but he was motivated to cut off his arm. Remember that cool movie about it? To free himself from a rock that pinned him down. Like, most of us are not motivated to do that. So what got him to that place to cut off his arm? Was it a survival thing? We'll dive into that more in class, but motivation is going to cause us to do things, right? So sources of motivation, we've got biological factors. So this could be food, water, or hunger and thirst. We've got emotional factors, we've got cognitive factors, and we've got social factors. All of these can be sources of our motivation. So motivational concepts, we've got instincts, we've got incentives. We're going to break those down. Again, those are common words that we've heard before. So how do they fit into motivation? So an instinct, this is an innate automatic disposition towards responding in a particular way when confronted with a specific stimulus. So for example, this is something that's unlearned. We're born with it. We react in a certain way automatically when a stimulus is presented. We don't see this in humans as much as we do in animals. So for example, birds build nests. That's an instinct. They didn't have to learn how to do that. All of the behaviors that some of these animals do are ingrained in their genetic code because they're instincts. They're just going to act out of survival here. So the problem with this theory, kind of what I just mentioned, especially with humans, is we don't see instincts as common with humans as we do in other species. So I don't know if you remember back from the development unit when we talked about certain instincts and reflexes with babies. Remember, they had a couple reflexes that they do automatically. Those things dissipate over the first couple months. And so we don't see those instincts continuing. Also, most psychologists believe that human behavior is directed by physiological and psychological forces, not this innate automatic response to a stimulus. So although humans, we don't have instincts like animals do, we do have needs and drives. So we want to make sure that we know the difference here. A need includes anything required to survive. So you have to have food to survive. So food is a need. Water is a need. You have to have water to survive. Shelter, etc. Things that bring us to homeostasis. A drive, these are what is controlled by our hypothalamus. These are the motivators inside us that drive us to fulfill our needs. Okay. So for example, if your body needs food, then the drive is going to be hunger, right? Because when hunger kicks in, what are you going to do? You're going to find food because you're trying to take care of that need. Same thing with water. If you need water, the drive is going to be that you feel thirsty. So when you feel thirsty, you're going to need to find water to fulfill that need. Also, we have incentive theory. So this can be a positive or negative stimuli that pulls us in one way or another to satisfy our needs and drives. This is where our needs and our drives push us into action. There's an incentive there. This could be something positive, or this could be to avoid something negative. The value of an incentive is influenced by both biological and cognitive factors. So this can be as simple as you want to do well on an assignment, and the incentive is if you do, then you get a sticker. That's incentive theory, right? But it could also be biological based as well. So we've got a couple different theories of motivation. We've got the evolutionary theory, we've got drive reduction theory, optimum arousal, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and cognitive dissonance. We're going to look at all of these, and we're going to break down each one. So evolutionary theory is just like what it sounds like. It's going to be dealing with an evolutionary perspective. Basically, According to evolutionary theorists, our main motivator in life is to survive, so we can spread our gene pool, right? We're trying to survive, we're trying to reproduce. So this theory would say that all of our behavior derives from that main motivation. Drive reduction theory, this is motivation that arises from imbalances in homeostasis. So what we just talked about with drives and needs, this imbalance creates a need that the brain responds by creating a drive that promotes the organism or us to take action to satisfy or reduce the drive. So just like I said, so the need would be food or water. Your body needs that. The drive, that's your body being like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. And so you're trying to reduce that drive because you don't want to feel hungry and thirsty. So you're going to eat food or drink water. Optimal arousal theory. Now I need you to erase from your brain when you hear the word arousal, like what you think that means. It's going to be different here in this unit, right? So with optimum arousal theory, human motivation aims not to eliminate arousal, but to seek optimum levels of arousal, okay? So performance is best when your arousal is moderate. This is kind of like a stressor. So generally we try to increase arousal when it's too low and decrease it when it's too high. Okay, so think about if you are about to take a test. You need a little bit of arousal, kind of a little bit of stress, a little bit of nervousness to do well on that test. Because if not, if you're like, whatever, who cares? You might not do very well on the test because you have low levels of arousal. Nothing is motivating you to do well. Now that can go the other way. Maybe you've got crazy test anxiety. And so then that creates so much arousal to where it's like you're so stressed you can't even take the test, right? At that point, we would want to try to decrease your arousal. We want to try to find this sweet spot where it's motivating you to get the job done, but you're not so stressed that you're panicking and breaking down. So basically, this whole idea that performance is best when arousal is moderate is the Yerkes-Dodson law. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, but we want to find ourselves right in that sweet spot when it comes to arousal. Too low, you're bored. Too high, you're too stressed. You can't get stuff done. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you've probably heard about this before. You've probably seen your triangle. It's the idea that in order to move to the next level, your needs have to be fulfilled 100%. Okay, so if we're looking at this, the average American, 85 feel secure in level 1, 70% in level 2, 50% in level 3, 40% in level 4, only 10% in level 5, that's self-actualization, which is what we strive for. The theory is a bit outdated. We still learn about it. People still talk about it. You can still use it. But the order is not universally fixed anymore, like he first promoted. There will always be exceptions, right? So people are arguing today that maybe you could still feel this need of belonging without safety needs. Not all the time though. So it's the idea that you need biological and physiological needs before you can move to the next level, which is safety. Then you would need safety needs before you can move to the next level, which is belongingness and love needs. And then the next one, which would be esteem, to finally reach that personal growth of to finally reach that level of fulfillment, which would be self-actualization. So this is a triangle that you will need to know. You will need to know what each of the levels are. So I would maybe come up with some ways so you can remember the order. Okay, last one, cognitive dissonance theory. When we have a dissonance, so this is the idea that we have a dissonance between our attitudes and our beliefs and our actions, okay? So I don't know if any of you are like in choir or band or whatever, but if you know what a dissonance is, it just means like when two notes are slightly off from each other and they create this tone that you're like, ooh, that's not right. We need to resolve it, right? It's the same thing that's happening in you psychologically when some of your actions are not lining up with your beliefs or your attitudes and you feel like, ooh, that's not how it's supposed to go. Okay. It's the idea that you believe, we'll give you some examples. You believe that smoking and vaping is bad for you, yet you do it anyways. You believe that being physical with your boyfriend or girlfriend is wrong, but you do it anyways. Okay. We have this dissonance. It exists, and it creates this kind of like turmoil and anxiety within us because our attitudes and beliefs and our actions are not lining up with each other. We know that something is wrong. We know that something is inconsistent. So most of the time you are motivated to resolve that anxiety by resolving the dissonance. Okay. So if you're feeling that, it can go one of two ways. You can either change your beliefs or change your actions, or you just start to justify them. Like, for example, if we go back to the smoking one, you believe that smoking's bad, but you do it anyway. So you might be thinking like, okay, I know it's bad for me, but I'm going to die anyways. So who cares, right? You might change like your attitude or your belief, or you might just knock out that action. But that's how cognitive dissonance theory motivates us with our behaviors. So hopefully you took some good notes. Hopefully you were listening. We're going to go over these theories again in class. We'll look at some examples. We'll talk about a couple things. And I'll be here to answer any questions that you have. But stay tuned for our next video.